Welcome to CELT-cast, the bi-weekly podcast from the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching at Concordia University, Wisconsin in Ann Arbor. Your hosts, Rob Balza, Kate Robertson, and Carrie Bierke, bring you conversations with professors and thought leaders from around the world, sharing fresh insights on teaching and learning. This academic year, 2025 to 26, we're focusing on one of the most transformative forces in education today, artificial intelligence. Whether you're a faculty member, educational leader, or simply passionate about learning, CELT-cast is your space to explore ideas, spark curiosity, and imagine the future of education together.
All right. Well, welcome to our latest podcast in the studio here today. My name is Rob Balza from Concordia University, Wisconsin. And also we have with us Kate Robertson from the Center of Excellence in Learning and Teaching, also at Concordia University.
Hi, Rob.
And we're pleased to welcome Jarek Janio from Santa Ana College, where he serves as the faculty coordinator for the School of Continuing Education, and also the nonprofit California Outcomes Assessment Coordinators Hub. Welcome, Yarek.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with you and certainly appreciate the recognition of my work. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, Kate and I read with great interest your recent article in The Evolution, Modern Campus Illumination, where you talked about how AI is flipping the classroom. And to get our conversation started, I'm curious, you tell us a little bit about your first experience with AI. Like, when did you first encounter it? What got you interested in AI? You've written a lot about it.
Sure, it is a hot topic these days, so it's really difficult to run away from it. But if you were to ask me about my first encounter, I suppose, I don't know how others have found out about it, but in my case, it was an accident, really. Someone sent me an email about something that's called ChatGPT, and I had no clue. I just thought it was just a different computer program. And then it was around Christmas, right? What was it, 2021? And what happened is that my daughter actually wrote an assignment for her business class, which she really didn't care for, maybe this way. And she wanted to get her work done fast. So she fed her text to this ChatGPT thing, and it just gave her the better version, what she thought it was, and she said she sent it to the teacher, and nobody said anything. And she told me that when I asked her, do you know what you've done? And it was just something that's part of her reality now. This is something that perhaps for all of us who are new to ChatGPT, to artificial intelligence, and we are the what's the expression here? We are the digital nomads, right? Versus digital natives. We remember days when we had the dial phone, right?
Yes.
My kids don't understand the concept. It's like, why would you even use that? I mean, really, you didn't have internet. It's just like, So we are kind of like really, really looking at this issue from different perspectives, and I think that kind of reminds me a little bit of there is a movie on Netflix, Three Body Problem, and it's about an attack of an aliens on the planet. It's based on a science fiction story by a Chinese author, and the premise of the attack is that humanity is evolving very, very, very fast, and it's doing it much quicker than the aliens that are going to destroy us. And they figured it out. How is that possible? How do they know and they can't do anything about it? Well, that's because humanity for thousands of years couldn't do much of anything except start the fire, and then they started the wheel, and then at some point some things were happening. For thousands of years we really didn't do much anything of anything. And then when enlightenment happened, an industrial revolution, and now we have our AI, you can see how our technological development just skyrocketed in very recent memory when you consider human history. So the premise of the book and then the movie is that the aliens who are attacking us, they realize that because their technological development has happened on a much steadier but linear fashion. So they know that at some point humans are going to excel and there is nothing that they can do.
Hmm.
So they are trying to disrupt, they are trying to kill the scientists in the movie, right? So that we don't progress as fast. But I think that example very well articulates what we are going through, right? In a sense that these days it's, I even saw on YouTube just a couple of days ago, this is what happened in the world of AI in the last 24 hours. Things are changing just so quickly that it's impacting our society, our culture, the way we communicate, the way we do pretty much everything and anything these days. So this is just a fascinating topic. So if I were to start with what drew me to the concept of AI, is the fact that I have been interested in learning, in what it is that students learn. And I think that's where AI kind of like started stirring up my brain and my thinking, because I saw it as most impactful tool that we may have ever experienced in history, to be honest. So let me go into greater detail on this idea, because with AI, we don't only have access to information, and that's the concept that I would like to elaborate on later as well. We not only have the content at our disposal, but the bottom line is what it is that we do with it. And see, that's where the major shift when it comes to education is happening. Teachers, classrooms, our institutions for that matter, are not the hubs of information or content anymore at
Yes.
all, by nobody's imagination. See, we are used to this idea, again, as I mentioned, referring to the three-body problem, for thousands of years. People would travel for, days, weeks, months on I don't know, using all kinds of different types of transportation to get to this hill, to this proverbial, ivory tower, a church or university, a building where the wise person was preaching something. And you had to sit in the room and be very, very, very quiet, lest you lose a thought. And that's the idea that has been perpetuated throughout history in our education until today. We still have classrooms with people who lecture for hours on end, and students are supposed to sit quietly and listen in case something bad were to happen, like the teacher, the lecturer says something of importance, and you were just not paying attention.
Yes.
This is not the case anymore at all. Content is everywhere. Content is available for the taking practically. I mean, ChatGPT and AI tools are either free, or the subscription is really not anything that's breaking anybody's bank. So that's the part that contributes to this ongoing cultural shift that we are experiencing. And again, I'm just looking forward to this conversation and many more to come, as we try to figure out how do we adjust, how do we adapt, what do we do now.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those changes over the course of our careers. Like I can remember some teachers debating whether or not students should be allowed to use calculators in math classes. And then when the internet hit in the 90s, certain faculty banning internet resources and others teaching us how to use it. And you're right, that kind of exponential explosion now with AI. It's really these questions that we've been kicking down the road about, are the professors the sage on the stage or the guide on your side kind of things. These are really coming to a head right now. So appreciate the conversation on this. Like your article's about flipping the classroom. For faculty that don't know what that means or have never tried that, like how would you suggest they kind of get started with their first experience with that?
Certainly. So the concept of the flipped classroom originated way before ChatGPT. I mean, again, it's way before, it's a very relative term, simply because, again, of this very, very fast change that we are experiencing, and we started experiencing it way before ChatGPT happened. So flipped classroom is an idea that instead of considering what I just said about the content being available everywhere all the time, and even before ChatGPT, right? We already have YouTube videos, we have Wikipedia, we have access to internet, let alone the fact that we have access to search engines and email. So what has happened is that now if I have a question, or even before ChatGPT, I was able to send an email to somebody, keep my fingers crossed that they will respond, right? And that's a very, very powerful tool when you think about it, because before that we only had a phone call. And if you could call someone, well, first you had to dig out their number, which was not always that easy. But even if you were able to do that, then you would just again leave a message if you're lucky, and then keep your fingers crossed that they will get back to you. So this dynamic alone of finding the content, finding the information, finding my expanding on the field of my interest, that has changed immensely in the last few years.
Yes.
So once we realize that, then some proponents of flipped classroom advocated for, or actually, flipped classroom advocates for this switch of content delivery in the classroom, because that's not necessary any longer. We don't have to be in the classroom listening to one person, whatever their brilliant ideas are in Physics 101 lectures, with all due respect to physicists, obviously. We could outsource this, or switch, move it into the comfort of the home. So instead of delivering the content for a couple of hours, we can simply ask students to discover, analyze, read, ponder, think, ask questions about the content at home. So it's sort of like, in English, what we have always done, right? Nobody was, well, there are people who lecture, let's just say, about War and Peace, by Tolstoy, fine. So people lecture on that. It's just that nobody is there retelling the story at the pulpit, right, in the classroom, because
Sure.
the book is too long. So students were expected to read it in the classroom, at home. So students would read it at home, and then they would come to class to discuss it, which is again sort of like original flipped classroom. But the idea now is that because of the ubiquitous access to the content, students can dig deeper into the concepts that they are studying in school before they even enter the lecture hall. And there, once they go to school, that's when they can go into this Bloom's taxonomy verbs as to what it is that they can do with information. So I think my thought that just occurred yesterday when I was thinking about this particular interview is that now we have access to information galore. I mean, this is as good as it gets, right?
Yeah.
ChatGPT delivers things instantaneously to us on a whim. I mean, I don't even have to dig anybody's phone number. I don't even have to wait for them to send me an email. All I do is, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep. I have this brilliant thought that just keeps me awake. I go to my ChatGPT window. I ask the question, and 2 hours pass, and I'm happy because I got things where I want them to be. See, now when I go to the classroom, I already have my ideas. I have developed a certain type of understanding. I have an idea about what it is that I would like to be discussing with the teacher, if this is what I still need to do. Because again, ChatGPT is on my phone right here, so I can always question this. So considering that we have access to information, the concept of flipped classroom helps us analyze or process that information. And see, that's something that we really couldn't quite do before the advent of internet, if we were to kind of use that as a cutoff date. because again, faculty were the ones who had the education, and they would share their knowledge, whatever it is that they know, in the public sphere. And that was the only funnel through which information was disseminated. That's why assigning work to students, well, was not really that practical, because what would students have at home? They would either have to read a book. The teacher could deliver the content of the book much faster, supposedly more efficiently. So why would you make students read, hundreds of pages if the faculty can explain it in a couple of hours? And then the issue of thinking and analyzing of the idea had to happen afterwards, after the content was delivered to students, after students were comfortable with with the topic of the given discussion. That's when they would go and ask questions on their own in the at home, trying to figure out what the questions are on the worksheet, answer them to the best of their abilities, and then do the quizzes and so forth. So again, the flipped classroom, the idea is for the content to be delivered at home, and then the discussion is taking place in the classroom, so that the faculty don't have to be spending their time covering the content endlessly just to ask students to repeat it a week or 2 weeks later during the test, during the exam. So all the discussions are happening at school. Content delivery is happening at home. And another benefit of it is, when you think about it, is that students are the ones who are deciding what it is that they know and what they don't know. If we have a class of 30, 40, 50, 200 students, then it's really difficult to gauge how many of those students actually already know that content, and how many of them are going to be oblivious to it for years to come. We just don't know. So we kind of like try to structure our lecture around the middle of the classroom, so to speak, right? Hoping that
Sure.
most of the people are going to get it. It's just that we know, with best of intentions, we know that there is some segment of our audience that again will not understand the concept I'm discussing. And then there are some for whom this is just utterly boring because they've known it for years. So
Yarek,
that's what the flipped classroom does for us. Yes.
yeah. So we all know faculty. I know Kate and I know lots of faculty like this. In fact, I'm kind of one of them in some ways. I love lecturing. I think it's fun and it's an art. And some faculty are really good at it, right? And when you're working with faculty now in the age of AI, and you want to kind of move them past that content coverage model that you were talking about into more of a skill development in the classroom model, like, what do you suggest in terms of, like first steps? Like, how does that first conversation with that professor who really does 99% of their classes are lecturing? Like, how does that conversation look when you first talk to them about these sorts of things and try to nudge them in that direction?
Right, Bob. I think that's a very, very important statement you just made. Is that you like it, and it makes perfect sense. That's why it's so difficult for faculty to move away from that idea,
Yes.
because when you think about it, teaching as a personal action, this is my professional life. I tell you, I put my heart there on that puppet. There's no question. I mean, I do everything I can to get the content to those poor souls who are in front of me. And I tell you, it's a very, very physical, intellectual, emotional experience. I mean, when you think about it, 2 hours of lecture is not for the faint of hearts. I mean, this is, it takes toll on you. It does tax your, energy, if nothing else. So for that reason, think about your own as a professor engagement. It's just okay, maybe not exhausting, but it's an experience that really tires you out. It's just that, see, just like a good jog for a jogger, you love every minute of it. And for that reason, it's really difficult for you to change your mind about that mode of delivery because it makes a lot of sense to you. Now, why does it make sense to you? Because you've been in a system for, okay, 12 years is just high school, right? Then you have your BA, then you have your master's, then you have your doctorate work, and then who knows, maybe some postdoctorate and whatnot. And so we've done all this years of work in the academia. And at the end, you just kind of like realize, okay, just a minute here. So look where I am. I got my PhD, you know? And so the system must somehow work. And if it doesn't, then obviously it's not my fault. I mean, this has got to be, you know, like those students are just not ready, you know. So maybe they'll do it later after my class is done. Sorry, there is only so much that I can do. And when you talk to the teachers, and you can probably start with four-year universities if you want to, but there's always voices who claim that that's true, that some segments, some populations that come to our classrooms are just simply not ready for our rigor. This is, you know, the community college kids, you know, that come to my class. Well, yeah, they are just not. No. They really need to be starting year one so that we have, as an institution, opportunity to put them through our expectations so that they know what it means to study. When they transfer for community colleges, that's questionable. And I tell you, community colleges, faculty, same thing. Those kids from high schools, they're just nah. It's just not going to work for them. And you can imagine what high school teachers say about, you know, middle school teachers, and what middle school teachers say
Yes.
about elementary school teachers, you know, and then the preschool teachers, you know, well, yeah, oh yeah, you have all those babies who come from those broken households, and what can we do in our classroom? So it's just we create this system of I believe there is something, system justification theory, that, you know, we look for excuses, we look for justifications. Why are things the way they are? Well, those are the reasons. And once we explain that, we are doing everything we can. So if you could please just, I think I lost your question in the midst of this explanation. See the justification?
I was just asking about the faculty like that are just in love with lecture. And
That's right. So again, lecture's purpose is to deliver the content, deliver the information. So when you think about it, uh, because we have content available everywhere, then why would you spend so much time talking at students without really having any type of a, you know, reciprocity, right? That just this, you know, going back and forth, just a little bit at least.
yeah.
And I think that in that way, the faculty realized that lecture is probably not the only, and it definitely is not the best way to deliver content any longer. As a matter of fact, you could try, go to YouTube, and there is all kinds of faculty putting their lectures online with best of intentions, and try something like, you know, I don't know, chemistry 101 college lecture, and see how much of that you're going to, you know, take over the course of two hours, or, you know, just try to sit through it, in other words, you know, and see if it attracts your attention, and how rewarding do you think it is. And once you have done that, then you're going to start wondering, okay, really, we put our students through this twice a week, and that's just for one class? What about psychology and history and physical science and whatever else that we have on their agenda for them, right? And then we wonder about lack of engagement, and then we wonder why students are not motivated, and they couldn't care less, and they want to cheat and cut corners. I think that addresses the question.
Yarek, that's so true. And it's so interesting to think about. You know, my background is education and Rob's is science. But as you think about all, like you just said, psychology, history, all of these various disciplines, do you feel like there are some class activities that once an instructor moves from delivering lecture to really focusing on skill development in their class, what are some kind of go-tos? You know, case studies, debates, things of that nature? Like how do you have some of those kind of golden tips and tricks that you could share with our audience? Like, hey, these activities tend to really engage students.
Yes, certainly. So I think that again, because of my work with student learning outcomes that had happened before ChatGPT came about, um, I have always tried to understand what it means for students to learn. When I think of experiential learning, for example, okay, to me, experiential learning, like many other types of learning that we talk about, is really a smoke screen for teachers giving students an opportunity to experience something. The question that I have is, okay, what is it that students learn as a result of that experience?
Mm.
Okay, the best I could get is, well, they must be learning something because they go through the experience.
Huh.
Okay, what is that something, please? And that's the question that haunts me, for lack of a better expression, or at least just say this is the focus of my work. Finding out exactly what it is that students learn as a result of classroom experience. And now let's stick to the learning part. Okay, how do we know that students learn anything? Well, we test them. Okay, how do you know that students who are answering questions on multiple choice tests actually give you something that they've learned? I mean, you don't know if they learned that information 2 years ago or 2 hours ago. You have no
Right.
clue about that. There is the possibility of them guessing an answer and getting it right. There is a possibility for them guessing an answer, getting it wrong. So it's just this very murky, very imperfect way to assess learning. And it's really not learning as much as recollection of the fact that we think students should be recollecting. So that alone leads me to this discussion of a skill. And again, if I were to go back just for a moment, again into our history, when I think about it, okay, throughout history, humans really did not have standardized tests. They did not respond to prove that they've learned something to their masters before the invention of writing either, or writing as we understand it today. In the past, let's just say, imagine again ancient Egypt or ancient China, ancient civilization. If you were to build a boat, well, you had to follow your master and then demonstrate the skill that that you have acquired. If you wanted to deliver a philosophical statement, well, you had to follow your master and then deliver such a statement, right? The same with music, with art, with pretty much anything. I mean, if you wanted to tend sheep very well, then you had to follow, a person who did it before you, and you learned, and that's how they knew that they could rely on you. And for us, we've gone through we have very good justification for this. We've gone through our industrial revolution. We've gone through things that required of us as a society, as a civilization, to make our education more efficient, and that's how we ended up with standardized tests and the way we assess student learning these days. Again, we think it's a good idea because we've experienced it ourselves and it worked for us. So what can go wrong?
Mm.
However, with the advent of ChatGPT, we realize that now asking students to write an essay or even prepare a presentation, respond to a written prompt, open book is yesterday's news. I mean, it truly is.
Huh.
What's open book? Like, who in the world cares? I mean, I have my ChatGPT who's going to do everything for me. So again, what I think is happening is that instead of trying to impose, for again, like lack of better expression, content of students, content on students, and expecting them to bring it back and somehow reflect on it and let's talk about it, we really need to focus on what it is that students do with that content. Information is available. How do we process it? That's the question. And the question of how we process, again, it cannot be just, a training of sorts like, uh, how do you use Microsoft Word? Like what are the functions? When you or even Canvas or learning management system or whatever program is out there. Oh, when you press this button, something else is going to happen. When you do this, oh, and you go, oh yeah, that's interesting. Oh wow, this is so cool. Then 20 minutes after the training, I mean, day later, how did I
It's so true.
how did I ever? Well, so we have those three things: content, how to process the information, but the bottom line is what we do with it. Because see, the reason I speak English so well is because I am being rewarded by speaking English well. If I were speaking with a bad accent, nobody would listen to me. I can't do bad accent, but it's a the same thing is, when you think about is everything that we do is a result of our interaction with the environment where we are in. There are reasons why we are not speaking Swahili right now. There are reasons why we are not eating lunch at the same time. There are reasons why we are not driving our cars at the same time. Well, that's because it's a certain setting, there is certain content, and there is a certain professional or otherwise articulated norm of behavior. And once I realized that, okay, behavior and environment and behavior. Just a minute. See, I got my doctorate from Walden University, and I tell you, I can just put this plug for them because from the day I started, the faculty there kept asking me, well, the ongoing question was to whatever I said, whatever, I mean, I had my master's degree and I've been around when I started my PhD. So I thought I knew a thing or two. So whenever I made a statement, there was somebody reminding me all the time, how do you know this? Where does this thought come from? And I always thought that it was just kind of like, okay, I thought of it, right? Well, no. The concept of environment in this case has been discussed for centuries. The concept of, flipped classroom, that's decades, let's say. Bloom's taxonomy, decades. You can't just kind of like barge into the classroom and say, I know this and I do this. No. You are standing on the shoulders of the giants. So who talked about environment and behavior? There comes the Skinner and the behaviorists. What do you know? Everything's there. ChatGPT does everything else, and then you read the books and you know that the only thing that matters for us is the environment where we are and the skills, the behaviors that we possess to emphasize, to articulate, to validate our stance in the given space and time. That's all.
Yeah, Yarek, this is a concept that really was hit home to me during the pandemic when so many of my students were confronted with misinformation and asking about, who do I believe? One person's telling me this about the virus, one person's telling me that. And so it dawned on me that as a, educator in the sciences and health professions that, the quality of evidence is a really important thing we can teach. And that's very true here with AI as well, right? How do we know what to trust? What's a hallucination? What's valuable information that AI is producing? So, and thank you. You've given us a lot of really valuable stuff to think about in terms of faculty development immediately. But in closing, I'd just like to ask you, like, how do you see this playing out in more of the long term in higher education? What's higher going to look like 10, 20 years down the line? What majors are going away because of AI? What majors are becoming more important? How could higher ed leaders start adapting right now to the new realities as we face the future of AI?
Yeah, I think Bob, you already alluded to this. So the Issue here is that ultimately is the responsibility, right? That we as human beings, ultimately, we are responsible for our behavior, for what it is that we do. And ChatGPT articulates that very well. We keep saying that it hallucinates and it tells us wrong information. People don't. I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's true.
Because see, when I talk to so and so in the hallway, it makes perfect sense what they just told me on topic X, Y, and Z. Then I talk to somebody else 2 days later on the same topic, and whatever that person just told me makes no sense whatsoever. Now I'm a completely different convert on that topic. I'm thinking and I'm doing something completely different. No, those people, no, they just made it up completely, and I realized that they did. Okay, so whose job is it to figure this out? It's my own. There's nobody
Sure.
else. So blaming ChatGPT for hallucination just makes no sense to me at all. What matters is taking responsibility for interaction. Just if I were to be sitting here, and telling you things that don't make sense, well, then I wouldn't make it. I would not make the cut. The podcast goes nowhere. But if this makes sense, then hopefully this is going to be published somewhere. And the idea is the same with every single interaction. When we carry ourselves around, we want to be reliable. We want to be validated. We want to be recognized. We don't want to be perceived as liars and cheaters and hallucinators, right? I mean, we just don't want to do that. So for that reason, we take care. We take responsibility for our own behavior seriously. At least we should. Sure, we fail here and there. We fail all the time. The point is that the machine that we have created cannot, at least right now, be any different. We just can't expect that to be 100% true 100% of the time. I mean, if you were to look at Wikipedia, or I don't know what else. I mean, what is a reliable source of information anyway? There isn't any. I mean, there is philosophies around the concept of how we perceive reality and who is right and who is wrong. So there isn't really that much that we can do in this regard. The question, I think, Bob, if I were to address that, you mentioned the different disciplines, right? That what are the majors that are coming in and coming out? Here's the question that I would pose. We do, as we just discussed, quite a bit of work around justifying the system that we have built for our students with an expectation that they are going to learn. We interpret that system all the time. Every single meeting that we have, we find holes in it, or we find support structures, but we talk about the system endlessly. And then, so that means, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the system is as stable as it sounds. It's still a system that's prone to change. And then when we talk about student learning, well, to be honest, we really don't know exactly what it is, except for this idea that I think that behavior is proposed to us. The bottom line is that if this is all on such shaky ground, then what happens when we try to map the road for the future would be this. Is this question about the system, or is this a question about students? Because, see, students are the ones who will have to figure this out, and they are the ones who are going to be taking responsibility for their own learning, for their own future, and they will figure out the way how to make money, how to set up a family, how to take care of the children, how to buy a house, how to buy a car. All those things will have to happen for them in some kind of a environment that would be hopefully free of war and violence, where they can, take care of business, right? Like human beings ultimately would like to do. And I mean all human beings, not just people who live in Southern California in my case. People all over the world have pretty much same desires. If we consider that as true, then all of them are responsible for their own niches. And now ChatGPT, or let's just say AI as a concept, as an idea, opens up very, very broad, very, very wide gate that's going to let everybody in. Now, 10, 20 years from now, again, I think the information is everywhere. Information processing is what's going to matter. And processing requires one thing and one thing only, and that's a skill.
Mm.
Jarek
That's what
Janio?
I am.
That's a perfect place to stop. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. Best wishes and blessings for your work in California. We appreciate your time very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to CELT-cast, brought to you by the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching at Concordia University, Wisconsin in Ann Arbor. We hope today's conversation gave you something valuable to take away, whether a new idea to apply in your teaching practice or simply a perspective to consider further. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Production for this episode was done by Ashley Curtin. Until next time, thank you for joining us and keep teaching faithfully.